Hello again, and welcome to part 2 of our series of DMA 30 section 3.7 videos. We're continuing our discussion on percents, decimals, and fractions. In the last video we talked about the definition of a percent. We wrote percents as fractions, and then we wrote percents as decimals. In this video we're going to go the other way. We're going to start with decimals and then write them as percents, and then we'll start with fractions and write those as percents as well. So, to write a decimal as a percent, first you could either multiply by 100 if you wanted to do it in your calculator, but multiplying by 100 is the same as moving our decimal point 2 places to the right, and then we just need to add the percent sign. So in this first example here, if we have the decimal 0.291 and we want to write that as a percent, we need to multiply by 100 or move that decimal place 2 places to the right. So we'll have 29.1, and then we'll add the percent sign. So 0.291 is 29.1%. In the second example, we'll start with 2.5, and then we'll move the decimal over 2 places to the right. Okay, and in that empty space, we'll put a 0 in for a placeholder. So 2.5 is equal to 250%. And always remember, if you're given a whole number and there's no decimal point, the decimal point is implied to be to the right of the number in the ones place. Now, writing fractions as percents, to write a fraction as a percent, first we're going to have to write the fraction as a decimal by dividing its numerator by its denominator. And once we have it in decimal form, we're again going to multiply by 100 or move that decimal place 2 spaces to the right and add the percent sign, and we'll have our percent. So let's start with writing 7 out of 8 as a percent. 7 out of 8 as a fraction is going to look like 7 over 8. Okay, and we need to express that as a decimal, so we'll do 7 divided by 8, and we get 0.875. Now, to convert that decimal to a percent, we need to then move the decimal 2 places to the right, or multiply by 100, and we're left with 87.5%. Now let's look at 2 more examples. The first one, we want to write 5/2 as a percent, so that's 5 over 2. Okay, 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And we saw what this looks like as a percent earlier. We're going to move that decimal place 2 spaces to the right, add a 0 placeholder, so we would express this as 250%. Now we need to write 5/6 as a percent. We need to give an exact answer and then an approximation of that answer to the nearest tenth of a percent. So let's start out with 5/6. Okay, if we do 5 divided by 6, what do we get? We get 0.8333 repeating. Okay, now we need to write this as an exact answer. So let's see what this is going to look like. When we move the decimal 2 places to the right, we'll get 83.333 repeating. Okay, and an approximation to the nearest tenth would be 83.3%. Okay, but we can't, to write this as an exact answer, we have to notice that this repeating decimal here, writing a repeating decimal isn't really exact, so we're going to have to express that as a fraction. Okay, we recognize that 0.3 repeating is 1/3, so to express this as an exact answer, we would say this is 83.33%. Okay, so the exact answer is here, 83.33, and approximated to the 10th place is going to be 83.3. Now, I've included here last some common percents and what they look like in decimal and fraction form. So if you didn't know that 1/3 was 0.3 repeating, it's listed in the middle here. But you might want to put these down in your notes and get familiar with them. That 10% is the same as a tenth. 25% is 0.25 or a quarter. And definitely these repeating decimals like the 0.333, the 0.666, etc. So you'll be able to recognize when you've got an approximate answer as opposed to a rounded answer or an exact answer. So that's going to finish up our discussion on section 3.7. To review, we went over the definition of a percent. We wrote percents as fractions and then as decimals, and then went the other way and wrote decimals and fractions as percents. Good luck on your homework for 3.7, and we'll see you next time.